now of short stories being showcased in both our venues. So we have a session on Bengali short stories at the Western Quadrangle, which is, up the steps and to your right. And we have a session here with two eminent short story writers, one from Sri Lanka and the other from Malaysia, uh, Chhimi Tenduf-la and Wan Phing. They will be discussing the infinite possibilities of the short form of writing, and the session is called Small is Beautiful. Talking to them is Zafar Anjum, who's joining us from Singapore, and he has helped edit a collection of short stories called the TBASS. So he'll tell you a bit of that. So it's the best Asian short stories. We have books available at the bookstore. You may want to collect that after this session. So it's my pleasure to invite Chhimi, Wan Phing, and Zafar Anjum. I think this is their first visit to Calcutta. So let's welcome them with some hands together.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me? Thanks, Malavika, and thanks to all of you for making it here this afternoon, sparing your time to spend a little time with us. And everything is short, so we'll try to keep it short and snappy as well. So I think the brief introductions have happened, so I'll just let the authors talk a little bit more about themselves and their work. As far as Kolkata is concerned, it's not the first time exactly for me. I came here as a child long time back. And you have been here also some time back?
Few times, yeah.
Okay. It's a great, beautiful city, and I congratulate the organizers of the festival for thinking of this and doing it in a grand scale and so beautifully. So anyway, we'll launch to the session, and as you know, the topic is small is beautiful, right? And we're going to talk about the beauty of the short story form, as well as the challenges that this form throws to short story writers. And this is not just about in the writing phase, but also in the publishing phase, and then the marketing phase. So those of you who are interested in this form, to explore it as a writer, we'll try to give you a glimpse of all these aspects of the short story. But before we go into more details, let's just hear from the authors. Chhimi.
Hi, I'm Chhimi Tenduf-la. So this is my latest book, which is a collection of linked short stories. Prior to this, I wrote a couple of novels, The Amazing Racist and Panther, all published in India as well. This is not my first time to Calcutta because my parents, my father's Tibetan, so he was brought up in Darjeeling. So I used to come through here to visit my grandparents, and it's lovely to be back.
Wan Phing.
Hello, my name is Wan Phing. I'm from Malaysia, and this is my first time to Calcutta and my first time to India. So I'm very, very privileged and honored to be invited here by the festival organizers and by Zafar, who is the publisher of Kitab. Yes, I've been writing short stories since I was very young, since I was 9 years old actually, but I never took my writing seriously until about 3 years ago. That's when I started entering a lot of competitions and open call for submissions, because they usually have a theme and they have a number of words, so that sort of keeps me motivated to produce new stories. And yeah, that's so far I've had about 14 short stories published. So yeah.
I just wanted to say how that we haven't, none of us have met before, and I'll just break the ice by telling you about something very embarrassing which happened last night. We started a WhatsApp group to communicate and plan for today. So I was communicating with them and introducing myself, and then I wanted to write to my wife and ask her what I should wear, and I took a picture of myself in an outfit, sent it to her, and said, "I look good, right?" But I sent it to them before I'd ever met them. So if they look at me in a strange way, you know why.
Definitely.
There's a small story right there. And by the way, your Prime Minister is also in India these days, right? So you have good company, but he's in Delhi. Okay, so the short story form is not exactly a new form, right? The first collection, if you talk about American short stories, came out in the 1820s, right? Washington Irving's sketches. And since then, so many innovations have happened in the form, and it has sort of died and been revived and died and revived. And there's always the discussion about, okay, finally people's attention spans are going down, so the time of short stories have come back again. But publishers haven't changed their minds yet. I wear many hats. I'm a short story writer myself. I have two collections. One is called Kafka in Ajodhya, and another one is called the Singapore Decalogue. The books are not here. And then I also publish short story collections, so I can talk about it from different angles. And that's why my questions will also come from those angles. But I mean, from you, Chhimi and Phing, I want to hear, how do you define a short story? What does it mean to you, and what attracted you to this form?
I didn't really know how to define it, but the setting for a short story for me. Are there any aspiring writers out in the audience today? That's great to hear. I mean, I think I didn't. I think even the greatest novelists probably started at some stage with short stories. To me, the advantage is so I've done both novels and short stories. Zafar said to me in an email that, do you think it's true that someone can't be a good novel writer and a good short story writer? Well, in my case, I'm not good at either of them. But so I'm not sure. But I think a good way to get the short story is not just a good format because you can get in and out of a story. Why I like it is even if the story is longer, you can start the story writing about the story where you want and finish it where you want. And sometimes to get published in a novel, you need it to be a certain length, unless you're an established writer. And often there can be a lot of fluff in the middle, I find when I'm reading. So a short story is good and it's nice and snappy and gets you out there. And for aspiring writers, the benefit of a short story is the way to get noticed by literary agents or publishers, or even if you write to a literary agent, it's very handy to be able to say you've had a short story published in a magazine or an anthology. So it's a good way to start a career, whether you look into short stories or novels.
I think what attracted me to the short story form is, number one, I have very short attention span. So I myself like to read short stories, and I find that you can actually just round up the story in about 2,000 words. So sometimes more is not better. And along the way, you can sort of go off tangent and all that, but you still have to come back to the point. And in a short story, you can do that very quickly. It might be a slice of life kind of story, but it still has a beginning, an arc, and an ending. So yeah, that's what I love most about a short story, that you can say something in a very concise way. Yeah.
Yeah, so totally right there. I think, Poe gave a very good definition of short story. He said there are three elements. One is you should be able to read it in one sitting. Two, the economy of characters, tone, style, right? And the third one I forget. What's that? Let me look at my notes.
Short, your attention span very
using
short.
words sparingly and efficiently, right? I think that's one of the key things for a short story. So we'll look at all these elements in detail. May I request both the authors to read a little bit from your book, from your stories, your most favorite stories, so that the audience gets to hear the flavor of your writing.
Okay, it looks like I'm going first. I admit I really don't like reading from my books because once they're published, I don't like to look at them again in case I could have changed anything. But I'll read you a little bit from this book. They're short stories, but they're all linked, and that's for two reasons. One is very honestly, it just makes it easier to get published because it can be marketed as a novel as well. So I'll just have to read from the first one because some of the others might give things away. Okay, this is called Sending a Night Breeze. He wears swimming goggles and a bright yellow raincoat. I am naked from the waist down. That's in the story, not now. He scratches his bald head, and I wasn't in the pictures I sent either. He scratches his bald head and leans over me. No love in his eyes, no hate, no warmth. Nothing, as if he has never seen me before. He tightens the straps on his goggles and sits in a rocking chair, while the 14-year-old maid pulls up his Wellington boots. I am drugged up to my eyeballs. As far as I can remember, this is the first time I'm not scared of him. Instead, I love him, even though he has never coveted my affection. He is my father. The maid lifts one of my legs. The 80-year-old nurse, chosen because she has no memory, raises the other. It is July 1983, and there are riots and curfews in Colombo. This barely registers with our family, because I am 17 years old, unmarried, and having a baby. My father delivers babies for a living, most of the time in a hospital. For a hefty fee, he also performs unrecorded deliveries to spare the shame of anyone in Sri Lanka whose lives are ruled by what their neighbors think. When he does these home deliveries, he is careful that blood does not get onto his person or in his eyes. The goggles, I have always been convinced, are more for effect than necessity, to intimidate in a way he thinks mischievous rather than cruel. Like how, as a diabetic, he sits at the dining table and injects his stomach in front of us while we're eating. A smile on his face, and this is the man who rarely shows any joy, not to his wife and daughter anyway. I am charged a nominal fee for the delivery, because I am family. My mother insists I pay something, even though I could have had it done for free at a government hospital. But what is the price for being judged, she asked me. What is the price of shame? She is not here, but that's no surprise. I cannot remember her ever hugging or kissing me. I'm told she never rocked me to sleep as a baby, burped me, or consoled me. Those kind of things were left to the youngest maid she had in her employment. Still, I always imagined her holding my hand when I was giving birth. I imagined holding a hand bigger than mine, but now I am squeezing the small right hand of the 14-year-old maid. My father, your grandfather, looks at me. He could be a gym instructor, a drill sergeant. Push dua, when I tell you. Call me Sudu dua, that means fair daughter, like you normally do. Technically, Sudadua means white daughter, but I am not all that fair. Maybe it is what they wanted of me. Maybe, since they think it is a good thing not to be dark, my father called me that as a term of infection. Push dua, he says. Don't waste the contractions. As I scream, my mother pokes her head through the door. Keep it down. I push until I cannot open my eyes, but when I do, you are in the 80-year-old nurse's arms, cleaned but not clean. My mother, nowhere to be seen. My father's spotless raincoat, boots and goggles strewn on the red cement floor. The 14-year-old maid has tears in her eyes. She touches my forehead and it feels nice. Now you are on my chest, feeding, my Sudu Putha. It doesn't feel real because it is so familiar, so like I knew it would be for some reason. This is love. Okay, I'll stop there. This first story is written to this girl's baby. She was actually raped, and that's why she had the baby. And the baby appears later as an adult in another story.
Thank you. I'll read from my short story. It's called Snake Bridge Temple, and it's set in Penang in Malaysia, which is a beautiful island, and it's featured in this anthology. My brothers call me So Zai, but I'm anything but stupid. I'm actually really, really smart. You see, if you want to stay alive in this city, you gotta be like me. Me, I'm not like my brothers. Sure, I'm working in a mechanic shop with my 大哥, which is big brother. We are earning our dues and paying mommy's rent. Adik, he shouts to me all the time at the workshop. Hand him this and hand him that. He's the brainy one, but I'm the smart one. He plays by the rules, I don't. I just want to stay alive. I heard about a man who was killed by his older brother. He was a chicken seller at the Lipsin market, and he had 2 boys. But that's because his older brother is real bad company. I may not like my brothers, but they're still my brothers, and I would never put a knife to their heads. One of these days, I'm not gonna be my brother's adik anymore. Besides, I have my own adik to boss around. He's 15 years old and he's a spoiled brat. We call him Babi Jun. All he does is hang out at Gurney Plaza and spend mommy's money. Me, I don't care about school. I only care about making money so I can have a good life. You see, next month, I'm going to Bangkok with my friends, and I've been saving up for this trip for months. I want to see the world and I want to have a good time. We're going next month because this month is the 7th month and the ghosts are out. This hill in Bukit Gambir, people say that it's haunted, but it's my favorite place in the whole world. Just down by the slope of this Tua Pek Kong temple, you can see the sea, and at night, the Penang Bridge looks like an orange snake. I sit on my Honda EX5, parked outside the temple, waiting for the devotees. There's Aguan, sitting with his legs up, and the black dog sleeping on the porch. There aren't that many people tonight because the ghosts are out. I'm off duty, but my big brother is interpreting. We are here almost every night after work, but not all nights. My EX5, it's spray painted a teal green, and my seats are upholstered with Hello Kitty on the pillion cover. That's my girl, and I ain't ashamed of her. The words on her say, 我只在乎你, I only care about you. And 亲亲我的宝贝, kiss my baby. They say it takes a real man to like Hello Kitty, and I'm a real man. Tomorrow night, I'm racing the Malay kid from Teluk Kumba from my old school. If I win, it's 250 ringgit cash. If I lose, well, I'll have nothing to lose because I'll still get a kick as long as I don't fall off the bike. There's things I do for fun and there's things I do for money. This one is both. We'll race to Motorola, to the bottom of the second bridge. The finishing line is underneath the green sign on the highway that says Ipoh, Kuala Lumpur, Johor. Easy peasy. That Seagate Highway, it was my route back from school to my home in Taman Lipsin. All this before I stopped school because I couldn't be bothered. And since mommy said I wasn't the studying type, well, I might as well not waste time and get my ass out to work. I'm thinking about that hairdresser chick from last month and how I would give her a ride across the bridge on my EX5. Maybe she lives in Butterworth. Maybe she lives in Bukit Mertajam. She's got big wavy hair the color of Milo and a small nose. She has a nice slim body and pretty hands that trim my hair to precision. Her name tag says Janice, and in the picture I secretly took of her on my phone, she looks really cute in her black apron. If she asks me what my name is, I'll give her my English name, Billy. If she wants my Chinese name, I'll give her my pinyin name, Zitai. That bridge, it's my gateway to the world. If you stay on this island for too long, you'll know what I mean. This weekend, when I go to Alostar, I'll have to cross that bridge. It's Ke Thai season and there's extra cash to be made everywhere here in the north of Malaysia, as long as there are spirit-believing Taoists. I help the crew set up stage, I do the wiring, I man the lighting. The girl singer comes on, wearing knee-high boots and a spaceship suit. Sometimes I get a picture with the girl backstage. Sometimes the girls are so ugly, I know only the ghosts are looking at them. My dream is to race on that bridge. It's a long, straight road with only a slight curve at the start and at the end. Only the orange lampposts are your guide, the dark oceans on both sides. That bridge is an easy race, but it takes a lot to stay awake on that 13-kilometer stretch. If you fall into the ocean, it will be like going to sleep in a dark abyss. If you crash onto the bridge dividers, it will be like getting pierced with 1,000 metal shards.
Thank you, Wan Phing. Well, I mean, that story she read is from T-Bass, the Best Asian Short Stories 2017. Moni Deepa, my partner in crime, is also here. She's the editor. And for those of you who are interested, we have a separate session on this on 27th, so do come by, please, if you are here in the festival. And now, I mean, after this reading, definitely you get a sense of what kind of writers these are. And I read some of the stories by Chhimi while I was traveling on the flight. And a lot of humor, as well as very acute observation of society there. So you should definitely check both these writers out and see what kind of stuff they're doing. Let's talk about inspirations now. I feel that a writer is nothing but an inspired reader. At least that's how I see myself when it comes to writing. So for short stories, who are the writers who inspired you to this form? Who kindle this spirit of writing stories and pursuing that? And do you have any ideals that you follow?
Should I say that you two inspire me? That's right. I actually don't have any. Honestly, I'm not inspired necessarily by short story writers, but more by real life and a lot of my story is inspired by my mother-in-law, because she's a fascinating species. Uh, very, very interesting. So I mean, basically, and also living in, it's similar in this part of the world. That it's Colombo where I live. There's so many unique characters and unique settings that a lot of what's in my book is, as you say, observation, and it's taking it out. I actually try in all my writing not to sort of try to be too inspired by anyone else, just because I don't want to repeat things which have been done.
How about you?
Some of my favorite short story writers are also novelists. Patricia Highsmith, she wrote Talented Mr. Ripley, but she's also a very good short story writer. I like F. Scott Fitzgerald, Great Gatsby, but he is also a short story writer. So I think a lot of these novelists are famous for their novels, but not so popular for their short stories. And where I get inspirations from, definitely the surroundings, location, setting, but mostly people around you. There's a famous writing tip that you should write what you know, but I say that you should write what fascinates you. So think about like what are the things that you always wonder about, like why do people do these things, or why do they talk this way, why do they act this way, and then you sort of. So my fiction is a mix of a real life inspiration, but I take the real life inspiration and it sort of spirals into something else. From then on, it's imagination already. So for this story, for example, it's actually based on my cousin. So I have a really naughty, like 19-year-old cousin, and he's so different from me, even though we are both, Malaysian Chinese, grew up in the same city. So I always wonder about like his background and what he does, and I stalk him on Facebook as well. I see what he's doing. So this is a mix of like real life and fiction, my imagination. Yeah.
So are writers stalkers? I mean, is that why a lot of family members and others, like stay away from writers? You don't have too many friends, right? He may put me in the book.
Yeah, no, I found people are much nicer. Friends are much nicer because you just take a pen with you.
Yeah. Let's, Chhimi, tell us about your process. And like she described, she takes something from real life and then puts her imagination into it, right? How does it work for you?
Yeah, so that's since it's because I've done both novels and short stories, and that's one of the reasons I really like short stories is because my mind sort of I have a ridiculous imagination, so I could be writing one story and half an hour later I've got some other idea, so I can jot those down and write different stories. What I'll do is I'll just write very fast for a couple of hours in the morning, read it back in the evening. On my Kindle, I email it to my Kindle, mark what I need to change, and get moving on that. But I try to finish the story as quickly as possible and then go back and edit. And the beauty of a collection, I mean, if you're with these, is you can treat each chapter as a separate beast, and it makes it much easier to edit and to be inspired.
And in that collection particularly, right, you have linked the stories. So like there are some characters which come again and again, right? And there are some connects between the stories also. So one character appearing in another story, asking questions, etc., etc. So I mean, is there any particular reason that you took that approach?
So that probably three reasons for that. Is one, when I first mentioned to my agent that I was doing a short story collection, he said, "Okay, great. What's the theme?" And I just no idea. So I quickly just said linked, and then I sort of had to play along to that. But the basic setting, it's about Colombo life, and everyone in Colombo seems to be connected somehow. So it's very realistic that if there was one story, someone else would be popping into it. It also, what I find, I mean, I don't know, I know some readers who literally can't read short story collections, and I've asked why, and their reason would be that, you might really like one story, and then you get into the next, and it's starting from scratch, and you haven't really got into it like you have with a novel. So I felt the way around that was to have these extending storylines, so that each character's story is separate in that story, but you have to read the whole book to find out the overall picture. And the reviews I've got in India say that it's worked as it could be read as separate short stories or as one big novel.
Okay. So that's a great tip for aspiring writers. Find a theme, connect the stories, and you might find a publisher, right? One of the things I think about is, short story writers, right? They create their own universe, their own world, which is certain kind of people, certain kind of characters living there, right? think of Malgudi Days, or think of Manto's stories, the kind of character that would appear, right? You would know this is a Manto story, or this is a Premchand story, or this is a Chekhovian story, or Carver's world, Hemingway's world, right? There are certain trademarks, certain kind of universe that they populate the characters with. So how does it work in your space? I mean, when you wrote those stories, right? Did you think of creating a certain world for yourself?
Well, it's actually possibly the opposite. I haven't got the skill of those sort of writers, but one or two of the stories in here are really dark, and one or two are very upsetting in the themes that they are. So as a reader, as a writer, I want to sort of give myself a break, and there's supposed to be funny stories in between, so the reader can take a break from what's very tense and the tense stories are based on real life, so it's something people can be scared of. I've got the title story here is Loyal Stalkers, and it's about a gym instructor who's training a lady in the gym, and she thinks he's wonderful, but she has no idea, and she doesn't know for the whole book that he stalks her, because it's written from his point of view. So he sleeps under her bed, he tries on her clothes, and she never knows. And so that's sort of quite scary for people going to the gym. But based on a gym instructor I know, who's not a stalker, but but I think he should be. No, he's so it's just that concept of sort of, in one story I've tried to sort of get things which people might be quite scared of in real life, but also then put there's sort of 3 or 4 stories where they're really good people who do really good things, really nice things, to balance that out. So I like the change there.
How about you, Wan Phing? What kind of characters attract you? What kind of universe you are building, through your stories?
I think when I started out writing, it was very general, very experimental. And then slowly, you start to find your niche and what is it that you like. So I definitely like writing local. And when I say local, local to where I am, like Malaysian, Singaporean, modern stories. Not like a historical, like war, like. So I think I like writing contemporary stuff, and I'm also like very attracted to I wouldn't say gangsters, but like but like those naughty boys, or like school dropouts, or like just what are they doing? Like I'm just very very fascinated by these people, and I think I have a lot of friends who are also like that, where I grew up. So, and then you hear stories of people doing this, running away to Bangkok, and I don't know, it's just so dodgy, but I love it, like I love this kind of like crime, grit, thriller style things. So over the years, as I write, these kind of themes keep cropping up, and I don't write fantasy, so my world universe setting is always real world, yeah.
So sorry, just one thing to add about short stories, which I didn't think of before, is that for me, what I like about them is that you can end a short story with a twist. I mean, so you can have them in books and in novels, but here you can have a very clear twist at the end. And thereby, when you write a short story, you know what the twist is, and then you can sort of write backwards. So I've got a few with twists here, and some of them twists you don't find out what the twist was until another story. But it's if you try that with a novel where you know the ending and work backwards, then you do have to fill in quite a lot of fluff.
Yeah, that leads to my next question, which is, do you know where you are going when you start writing a story?
Sorry, that's one difference with the short stories I know. With the novels I've written, I have absolutely no idea. So I just start with an idea and go. So that's also quite fun in ways. But it's nice to know, if I'm confident about an ending and I like the ending, then it's a really nice story to write.
So they say there are 2 types of writers: plotters and pantsers. So plotters are people who know exactly, okay, A, B, C, D, this is gonna happen, this is how it's gonna end. Pantsers are people who like just off the cuff, and very very organic for them. They don't know where the story is going. So I'm definitely the latter. The second one. And sometimes I have an image like, okay, I think I want it to end this way. But sometimes as you're writing, the character can go off tangent, and you just have to follow the flow.
Yeah, so I would agree with that, and some of the writers I've read, and some of you might have read as well, they start with an image, and most of the time they don't know where they're going, and is process of self-discovery basically, and that's where the fun and kick of writing a story is. Another question that as a writer I'm asking is when do you know that your story is complete, that it is done, and now you can send it for publication? When do you know? When do you know it has happened? It's good.
So because I've got I was working, I had the publisher before, sort of, so they could tell me. So, but yeah, so I had the deal, and actually after I sold the book, I decided halfway through I want to take out some stories and I want to add some other ones. But in terms of how it's finished, it's difficult to, I find it's difficult to judge yourself. You may, I hate friends reading my books, so it's good to have a publisher, because if they tell you they don't like something, it's professional. If your friends tell you don't like them, then you have to tell them something you don't like about them also, and then you pick up, they're getting a bit overweight, whatever else. No, but I mean, it gets a bit personal, so it's nice to get a professional viewpoint. And I mean, I don't know if it's different, but with you two, but with me, sometimes I can go to bed thinking that is fantastic. Then I wake up in the morning and read it and think, oh, that's absolutely rubbish. So it takes a bit of sleeping on. And there's something I read actually that even if you're writing a first book, that if you think you finished it, leave it for. It's very hard to do because you get very impatient. But to leave it for 3 months, even not even look at it, and then read it again in 3 months and see what you think before you send it out. Because it can be a long process. I mean, you can get lucky. With my first 2 books, I sent out a very early draft. In hindsight, I would have liked to do a bit more work on them before as well.
For me, I'm more a feeling kind of person, more intuitive. So when I craft a story, I kind of, I know it's done. I'll leave it for 24 hours. I think 3 months, for a novel, maybe more. But for a short story, I'll leave it about 24 hours, 48 hours. I'll know that, it's a bit like doing sculpture. Like, I've sculpted the shape already. I know, beginning, middle, ending, it's like that. Leave it for a while, and then I'll come back to it, and maybe just put in some details, but it won't change so much. But I need that 24-hour break to sort of have fresh eyes again. Yeah.
And one of the things is with the collection, I mean, it happened with this, a couple of my stories were published in magazines first. And so I could see the feedback on those, and if the feedback was good on those, then I knew that was a sort of theme I'd take forward and edit them again later. But now in this day and age, you can see if an article's gone viral, or when I say viral, it's not not Justin Bieber viral, but you can see it's got some success, and it may be successful.
And as writers, do you follow any theories? Like the famous Hemingway theory of the tip of the iceberg theory. 10% is visible, 90% is not visible, right? And Joyce's approach of deletions, like he used to delete the beginning and the end, and what you got is the middle. Do you have any concepts like that as writers when you're working? Some guiding principles?
I work at a school also at the moment, so I teach. I used to teach, and so you're preparing notes and studying and telling students what to do. So I hate to do that sort of thing myself. I like to sort of make it up as I go along.
Me too. I'm a self-taught writer, which means I haven't done a professional master's or anything. I actually observe. So if you want to be a writer, you have to be a reader first and foremost. Because when you read other people's works, you kind of observe, how are they doing it? She's putting the action first, and so to be a good writer, you have to be a voracious reader, I would say.
I would add to that also, because I definitely, that's very, very true. You can't be without that. But I also find there's other formats that I'm very inspired by films, even though I'm writing books. I actually pictured my books as films before I picture them as books. So I can sort of hear the background music, I can hear the beats in my head. It's obviously not in the book, unless it comes with a CD. But it's just the way, it's more, because you can get a more visual impact. But just it's the same principle. It's the story arc, and in a very simple plot that someone starts off the story with a goal and he tries to reach that goal, and it's more obvious in film sometimes, and also particularly for dialogue. I mean, I read a lot of authors I think are fantastic authors. I still think their dialogue's quite bad because it seems unnatural, it's too bookish, whereas if you get it in a film dialogue, it seems much more realistic and snappy. That's just my view.
But this question is a bit complex and it has many layers that I'm going to ask. Is more about the thing you touched about, the novelist versus the short story writer. Can you be good at both? Or is the novelist bigger than the short story writer? And why there is this stepmotherly attitude from publishers for short story collections, right? You have seen it firsthand, right? And one thing in your case, the challenges of getting a story published, right? The avenues, what kind of challenges you face in that sense. So what are your thoughts about this? And also add to it is, some people think that the short story writing is the stepping stone to writing a novel. Are these two self-contained different forms?
Right. Sorry, I'll just answer that through experience. So, in terms of publishing, this is my third book, so I'm not sure what the answer would be, whether I would have been able to get it through the door of a publisher if I hadn't already got 2 novels written. And how I know how publishers work is because I spoke to a massive publisher in England who's done a lot of Booker Prize books, and by email, and she was saying that their issue with short stories is it's very hard for them to get reviews for a short story collection. If they don't get reviews for a short story collection, it's very hard for them to get into the bookshops. So no one's really sure why that is, but it's just the way it goes. In terms of whether you have to be a short story writer first, it's hard to get a collection published, but a lot of novelists, I think, get short stories published in magazines or anthologies, and that's the stepping stone, as I said earlier. If you're writing to an agent or a publisher, if you're an aspiring writer and they have no idea who you are, if you can say, I've had this in an anthology or I've had this in so-and-so magazine, obviously it carries a lot more weight.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that stereotype as well that like short stories are easier to write than novels. I've attempted 2 novels. They're still in draft format, and I think it definitely takes more effort to craft a novel because it's much longer and requires more attention and skill, I suppose. But which is why it's amazing that you've put out novels and short stories. But I'm not sure if the skill set is different. Yeah, I think it might be.
I've read that as well. I've read that short stories are much harder to write, but the people who say short stories are much harder to write are short story writers. But I'm not sure if it's actually true. I find it much easier.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't want to give my opinion, but I guess writers who excel in short story writing, right? They are known for their short stories. So either, for example, Great Gatsby, right? Fitzgerald is remembered for Great Gatsby. Not people don't talk about his stories. He might have written good stories as well. There are very few writers, of that level, who have done, who have excelled at both the forms. But for most writers, the test is, given a choice, would you only write short stories, or you would also write novels, right? For me, like given a choice, I would only write short stories, for example, right? So one has to decide, and maybe you're multi-talented, so you can do both. But I think these 2 forms are very self-contained and takes different skill sets. Attention being one of them, most importantly. Now I think, is anybody keeping time? I guess we have to finish at 2:50, right? So I'll just open the floor for questions. If there are any questions, please go ahead. Yes. Yes, please take the mic.
The first question is to you, Mr. Zafar, since you are a writer and a publisher. So I would like to know what is that the publisher sees in the writer's work, especially when it's a fresher, when the writer is a fresher. He's got no background of work previous work published. So what do you see in priority? The second question is to the writers, I just want each of you can comment on it. As you had said that should be a theme, Is it necessary to have a theme in this series of short stories? And who decides the theme, the writer or the publisher?
Okay. I'll take your question first. So as a publisher, every day we receive so many submissions, right? People are pitching collection of short stories or novels, etc., etc. We always ask for 3 things, that you send us a bio, you send us 3 sample chapters, and a synopsis, So the first round of elimination is about what is the quality of the submission, So from the letter itself, from the email itself, you can figure out what kind of depth and experience this person has. Then you sample the reading, right? If it is something that is totally out of the way, something new, something very fresh and different, that catches your eye, right? And looking at the factor that where the author is coming from, what kind of experience he or she has, Today, a lot of publishers also look at how social media savvy you are, how marketable you are. All that stuff is there, right? But I, as a publisher, look at the literary merit of a story, of the composition, of the creation, and if it sort of gives me a jolt, or if it sends a shiver down my spine, or I feel something in my spine, of reading the story, something unusual and unique, then I think, okay, let's go for it. Not at my level, not at my level. If I'm convinced that this is a work of literature and this is worthy of being published, then I go for it. That's my criteria. Other publishers might have other criteria as well. But most publishers are very conservative about taking on short story collections because the market data shows that short story collections don't sell that well compared to novels, which is strange, even though I find a lot of people who love short stories and they say they want to buy, they want to read, etc., etc. But the market behavior is a different animal that I've seen firsthand myself.
Okay, for your question about the theme, I think the reason for theme is because of that. Why a short story collection may not be marketable is because each story may appeal to a different demographic. So, for example, with my books, my first book was very popular with elder ladies, really liked it, and then they read this and they were shocked. So it's sort of that's what they want. Perhaps I'm guessing want to see that it's something that someone would like the whole book for, and unfortunately, it's something that because before you publish it, you'd have to have come up with a theme yourself before you reach the publisher. But I recommend what I did because it's much easier if you link the stories, and it also makes it easier to write the next story because you've already got some of the characters, and it takes the whole story forward so you can have an overall arc, and it's actually very fun to write that way. In terms of what, sorry to jump in a bit on that question, in terms of what a publisher would look, I can tell you from the other side, when I had to approach publishers, and now when people approach me and say, how will I get published, and I say, show me what you're going to send, and very often it's nothing near like what they should send. And the information of what you should send is very easily available on the internet. And so if you send something which isn't in the right format, with the right covering letter and things like that, then an agent or a publisher, they must have a massive pile, so they would be looking at an excuse to get rid of things. But you can also, for me, I went to Bangalore Lit Fest recently and I did a session on publishing and on how to get published, and afterwards a few people came and showed me what they'd written, and in the space of about a page I could tell whether someone should stick with it, whether they had the talent. Something very obvious somewhere. But then, and I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect by any means, but it shows there's something creative and something stylish about the writing.
Yeah, I think some sort of track record or credential would also help, sort of like a portfolio. So that's what I was doing for a while, submitting to a lot of places abroad. So trying to build up my portfolio, if you like. Yeah, so I think it helps before you approach a publisher so that they can see that, oh yeah, you are serious about this. You have been published before. Yeah.
Sorry, and on the social media stuff now, a lot of agents and publishers are on Twitter and things. So you can see a lot about them by following them. And this is a bit about stalking. You feel a bit guilty because you're kind of following their life run, but you find out what they're looking for and the sort of styles they like. And it may not be what you write, so then you move on to someone else and you find the right sort of theme, and that also shows them that you're taking it seriously, that you've...
Over here, when you speak of short stories, what exactly are you meaning? Are you saying 12 stories of these many words? Means how exactly does it, how do you break it up, or is it more than around 40 stories? I have even seen short story of 40 stories or so. So what is the standard, means if I ask, means how would you categorize a short story collection? Normally I have seen Jeffrey Archer and they were all 12 stories, right? So how exactly would you break it up? How would you categorize them?
It depends. I mean, typically collections have minimum like 10 stories, and it could, depending on if each story is like 10,000 words long, right? Because typically the book's length is 60,000 words to 90,000 words, right? If the stories are shorter, like 2,000, 3,000 words, even up to 5,000 words, you can take like 10 to 12. You do the maths, right? If it is much longer, then you go for it's almost like a novella, right? Like in 5 stories, 20,000 words each. You can do that as well. So it all depends like that. If very short stories, like 1,000, 1,200 words, you can do even 20. Yeah. Yeah.
I think you mentioned Jeffrey Archer. I think he did in his last book, did one for 100 words or something. So it could be anything. I think a novella is 40,000. So under that is a short story, I think. But there's also some examples of short stories. Sorry, I'm talking a lot, but this is my only session, so I have to take. Okay, no, sorry. There's some. The other thing I might do next is you can have a collection of, well, not a collection of short stories, but you can have 5 short stories, say 10, 12,000 words each, where it's the same character in different situations, and then you can market that as a novel. It's easier to write, but it's also people can read them individually, and there's some very good examples of books like that.
Thank you. Are we out of time? Can we take one last question? 5 minutes, okay. Okay. Mic here, please.
I seem to have the mic. Thank you. Really enjoyed the session. I actually want to continue the same conversation. I'm sorry. The thing is, the fact that short stories, don't seem to be as popular as novels, and I'm talking of from the publication point of view. My question is more to you, sir. Since Kitab International is one of the very few that I have seen who actually endorses or cherishes short story collection, you have done quite a few in your experience as publisher. Have you seen any change coming in the fact that you endorse and you over the years have those short story collections done well? Are there readers? Have you been able to effect a change? That is what I would like to ask.
Well, we are too small to effect a change. The intention was there, as you rightly recognized. In fact, it came from my own experience, because when I had a collection of short stories and I wanted to get it published, publishers who had published my other books, non-fiction books, they were not very keen, because they were saying that the short stories don't work, etc., etc. I said, okay, hell, I'm sure a lot of authors are facing the same problem. And I talked to many of my co-writers, like Moni Deepa is here, she will attest to that. So all of them, whoever is writing literary short stories, it's very difficult for them to get published. I think Chhimi is lucky that he got a break through Macmillan, but that too happened because he had written 2 novels and he had made a name for himself. But for first timers, it's very difficult. At Kitab, we believe that it's a journey. The numbers are not great, and I'm not bothered about numbers also. I know that if you do anything new, it takes a while to build the readership. So it will happen, and the books is a long tail business, right? So as an author, as a publisher, you have to keep plugging it, you have to keep talking about it, and it can have like 10, 20 years life, and over a period of time you can sell a decent number of copies. It won't be a bestseller overnight, right? But if you're an Arundhati Roy or somebody of that scale, and you have a collection, of course it'll sell a number of copies, right? But even Arvind Adiga's Between the Assassination didn't do that well. So it goes both ways. I think the idea is to keep faith. I believe in the power of short stories, and I'll continue doing that. And I'm saying it as a publisher of Kitab.
So one other thing again, I'm sorry, broke the applause. Sorry, one other thing, I'm trying to talk again to justify my flight here. The short stories, that we're talking about collections which are hard to sell. So a single short story to magazines and things like that is actually quite profitable. There's possibly more money in doing that than writing books anyway. I think you may get 20,000 rupees for a short story, for example, to some magazines, and then overseas it would be even more. So it's hard to get into, but it's once you've done one and I'm lucky now because I've published that I get asked to do them, but once you've done one, then it's a way of doing that, and before you know it, you've got a collection which you can publish after you've had them in magazines even.
Thank you very much. I think we're totally out of time. Thanks a lot for your patience and for your appreciation. We'll have more discussion on short stories on 27th when we launch the Best Asian Short Stories. So do come by if you want to talk more, and we'll be available here. You can chat with us. Thank you very much. Thank you.